there and welcome to the channel. I'm Anah Parreli. If this is your first time joining the channel, just to let you know that with the video series, we've got a whole load of them directed at the ruling numbers primarily at the moment, and you can find all of our numerology videos under the numerology playlist. Now, this is the final video that we're doing in regard to master numbers, which is the primary pathway for people. And this will be before we step into looking at day numbers and other influences, shall we say, on a person's life path, or how the divine blueprint shows itself to people through their birth numbers. So I will commence by explaining what power numbers are. So before I do so, I actually neglected, and I should not have, to mention and give gratitude to the returning viewers and to our subscribers. Your engagement is very much appreciated. Okay, so let's take a look at power numbers. Power numbers primarily show, when we talk about numerology as far as divine blueprints go, they primarily show in the master numbers. And I say primarily, and in fact, that's only because when it comes to people's birth numbers and their ruling numbers, that you don't actually see potential for a power number to arise in the day numbers, and this is because the only ones would be the 11 and the 22. The rest of them will be found in the master, in the ruling numbers. And the ruling number with the totality of all the digits of the birth date, that is the primary pathway. Day numbers we're going to look at, I think it's in the next video, and that's the secondary pathway that people can have. Anyway, regardless of that, a power number is one where it's basically got a duplication of the ruling number energy. So, for instance, the numbers are 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88 and 99. Now, there is some debate, to be clear about this. We've got modern numerologists that are referring to 33 as a master number, but Dr. David Phillips, who was a student of Pythagoras or Pythagorean numerology and has written many books about it in the last century, he was very adamant that 33 is not a master number, it's a power number. And he does make this reference that he believes that modern numerologists, or the current trends towards the end of the 20th century, were actually misled as far as that goes. So let's take a look at 33. Just a reminder that when we're talking about the ruling numbers, we are talking about reducing the number down to a single digit. So in the instance the 33 of 33, it actually is the ruling number 6, but it's the way it's calculated that makes it a power number. Now, in regard to the 33-6, this is actually going to be a bit challenging for me to write about because it's actually my own ruling number, all right? And I can definitely agree with a lot of the content that's put out there as far as high principle, sacrifice, loss and responsibility goes, because it does seem to carry with it heightened responsibility. And a person will know this, like if I try to emotionally detach from what is written and look at my life, because I'm now obviously heading towards the last trimester of my life, I can look back and I can see where, by comparison to other people's lives, yes, it has carried a lot of responsibility and a lot of sacrifice. So as I say, this is where it becomes a little bit difficult for me, because when it's our number, we're kind of attached to it. So I've gone to a website and I've actually sourced some content here to try and deliver it impartially for me. So there is links with people's, if I could speak, other people's perceptions, I'd say authors, that there is a magic associated with 33. I think possibly there is, and this probably involves the capacity to do invocation in effective ways. But either way, I'll stick to the basics here. There are some examples of why 33 is supposed to have this magic, right? And the sum of powers in mathematics, the sum of 3 cubes is 33. This is all too scientific for me. In the Newton scale, the degree of heat measurement devised by Isaac Newton in the 1700s, water starts to boil at 33 degrees. 33 is the atomic number of the element of arsenic, which has earned the reputation as the king of poisons. I'm not sure I like the sound of that one. The human spine consists of 33 vertebrae, and there are 33 deities in ancient Hinduism, which is actually really interesting. In Vedic astrology, the number of 33 is known as the knowledge bank. Fascinating connection, which I wasn't aware of. I tend to be a little bit more grounded and practical, I guess. So my questions in regard to, if we're talking about the magic of numbers, perhaps it's more about the fact that the 3 is what is referred to as a masculine number. It's a number of activity. It's fairly practical. It also is associated with a level of luck and good fortune. And when we have the 33, that kind of doubles the power and the blessings, I guess, of the number 3 in itself. But then perhaps the magic is that you've got a double load of practicality and a desire to put or to walk the talk. And then because it adds up to a 6, the 6 is the feminine number and the intuition, and it's extremely nurturing and caring and loving. So that, I guess, where the high principles comes in. As I said, I've read a number of different resources talking about the 33, and I want to remind people that when we talk about this stuff, we're talking about a potential, okay? Not everybody achieves it. And if they do, it's important to be aware that they actually live a life path. It's a destiny, it's a life path. It's not necessarily that they come into the world with all these abilities. But I mean, having said that, the other thing that's associated with the 33-6 is that there is apparently a predisposition to powerful and prophetic dreams. Now, I would say this is true to an extent, okay, because I, as a young person, used to get messages in my dream state, and I continued to get messages in my adult state that were prophetic. For example, I witnessed a plane crash off Canada, and I saw the Cyclone Katrina before she occurred. I knew that was going to happen, but the thing is, I didn't get a clear message on that. I thought it was going to wipe out New York. I saw they showed me street signs saying new, but I couldn't see the actual Orleans part. And I also saw the tsunami back in, I think it was about 2004. The thing with this is, I actually requested that I not see. I put it out in the universe. I didn't want to see them anymore. I found them to be extremely distressing because with each of the prophetic dreams, I was personally involved in it, like a witness to events that were transpiring at the time, and it was quite distressing. And I felt there was no point to me seeing these dreams because it was not like I could actually let anybody know what was going on, or I couldn't prevent them. So I felt that it was pointless to see them. And in the end, I concluded that they were part of me opening up and giving respect to the visions that I was seeing and understanding, yes, that there was something much bigger than ourselves. Now, of course, the way I'm operating this channel stands testimony to this content here, that those with a life path of 33 want to use their life to raise the consciousness of as many people as possible. They have a concern with the earth and all the people who live here. And this site refers to the 33 as a master number, as being that we're master teachers, whatever. So it is a vibration of high principles. It does require sacrifice and courage to maintain the ideals. I would say it certainly does at different times. With perseverance, all the problems can be overcome, and the guidance for a person with a 33-6 is to stand by your inner convictions of truth and justice, and success will be achieved. You know, I sort of say, well, that's somebody's interpretation, because I had some very big problems. You know, obviously I did a Bachelor of Social Work because these factors are important to me. But the problem is that I don't know if it's to do with the times that we live in. I did stand tall and proud, and I fought, and I ended up fighting the system, and I ended up getting quite burned by it, I might add. I didn't win that battle. It was quite disappointing, but I did stand by the courage of my convictions. What is the other thing is, so our mission in life is to help others and to not use our energy for complete personal gain and self-gratification. If we do, the advice is that we'll experience sensations of loneliness and loss. The true path of the 33-6 is one of service, and the purpose is to give light and love to humanity through humanitarian ideals. Now, there's a certain part to this that's true as well, and it's not something, I must be honest, that I'm particularly happy with, because when I first learned about my numerology, oh goodness me, my children were older, and I saw it and I thought, you know what, timely that I found the content at the time that I found it, because it does say that we do take on these responsibilities and burdens, and all the positive stuff, but many people with a ruling 33-6 become used and abused in their life because of their need to nurture and love others, and they can become resentful and bitter, and I certainly was at risk of going that pathway at the time, simply because I felt that life was unfair. It was like I was picking up other people's responsibilities when they could have been doing it. And to be quite honest, that is true, they could have. And if I'm being a bit cryptic here, this is because obviously I'd experienced a marital breakdown, and I was raising 3 children and working, and it was very difficult because the children had high needs. And obviously if you've left a marriage where there's been disharmony and conflict, I think the reality is that very rarely do you come the other side of that when both parties have got good communication and conflict negotiation skills. There's a breakdown all round, and that will often carry over post separation and divorce. So at that point in time, I felt that I had been sacrificing way too much of my life, my goals, my views, my dreams, my hopes, and all of that stuff to accommodate my parenting responsibilities, which of course you don't regret. You do it. You know what I mean? This is what a 33-6 will do. We will do it. But if it means that it costs or it can take too much from you, and that is where that risk of becoming bitter comes in. So, it's very important for us to establish what's ours, what isn't, what we need to hold on to and what we need to let go of. So these are just my thoughts, but that's how a 33-6 will roll in my experience of doing numerology on other people. I'm not standalone, just letting you know. Now, I should have mentioned that apparently the 33-6 is very rare. I would actually disagree with that, but I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a little while. And the point being that spiritual doesn't always mean religious. Some of the most enlightened people I've met have never attended a church. They were considered to be heretics or unbelievers. And I would state that some of these people that I've met even identified as atheists, but they just had this wonderful shiny aspect of themselves because they were just pure love and kindness, and this includes big bruisey men in the mining sector. And my understanding is that they learned this kindness and to be these compassionate human beings because of some really harsh life experiences. And this has led them, as I say, down this pathway to be of service to others. Even with the higher management, one business that I worked for, he was absolutely adored by all his workers. He was a hard taskmaster, but they absolutely loved him because, as the manager said to me, if they were ever in need, they knew that they could rely on him to try and help him. And if that meant that they had to come and live at his house for a little while, so be it. He was there for he used to call them his boys. He would be there for them. The 33-6 actually does have a caution attached to it because of this helping desire, as demonstrated by this man. There can be a risk that when they do the helping and caring, that they actually disempower a person. So there's that. By that I mean that any helping that should be offered or could be offered needs to be that case of showing them how to catch fish, or that saying that applies to, you can catch fish for a person and keep feeding them, but they're dependent on you. If you were to move away or snuff it or whatever, these people would likely starve because they haven't learned how to fend for themselves. So the empowerer will actually, perhaps if they're going to buy them something or do something for them, we'll give them a fishing rod, show them how to use it, and show them how to catch fish themselves, and then they can take care of themselves going forward. So that's the difference between caring about, caring for, and dependence and independence, and power and disempowering support. There is references, of course, because people tend to gravitate to the 33 to tell them their problems, because we do tend to make good listeners usually, certainly when it comes to listening to people's problems, that we make good counsellors, which I find interesting. I looked into all of this stuff after the fact. I actually gravitated towards doing a Masters of Counselling, although I didn't complete it. And that was largely because of delivering services. What I noticed if I was doing tarot or anything like that, that once I'd delivered the service, then the person would tell me basically their life stories. And I felt inadequate until I did my formal training in social work and counselling. The 33 is also supposed to indicate leadership qualities. And generally it's leadership because, and this is on the website I looked at, leadership related to caring and humanity. And I can relate to that because across my life path, I have found myself doing semi-leadership roles, and quite often it's because I see an ideal or an opportunity that can be basically community development, if you like. And often it's a case of me turning around and saying to people, well, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it, Leading is actually not, and I've said this to people as well, leading is not my preferred option because I'm actually not a limelight seeker. I would rather be helping somebody else to lead and take the limelight. This is another reason why you don't get to see my face, is because I like my privacy. I like to be behind the scenes. But yes, because we are high principled, and of course not everybody's the same, if we feel strongly about something, we will get in and get our hands dirty and at least start the project so that somebody else can carry it further. And then there's a reference to pride, okay, that 33 sixes can carry pride, which we do, and I'll put my hand up to that. We are humans, and we do take pride in work that we consider that we've done well. And we, of course, like to have our efforts validated and appreciated, but at the same time there is a discomfort and a disquiet with over-appreciation and excessive, because it just makes us shrink back, to be honest. We're not limelight seekers. And of course, when they say on this website that, because it does make mention of the fact that 33 sixes do experience pride, but we're not comfortable with it because this is what they say, that we're actually quite humble. I would say yes, there is. We are not comfortable with having great big accolades towards us for our achievements, and that's largely because, this you will hear me say again and again too, is that any of our successes, because we are connected, I'm connected to my guides, I see it as teamwork. I don't see anything that I achieve as being a sole or individual effort. If I manage to deliver a good reading to somebody, for example, if I'm doing spirit communication or whatever, then I feel great. That's where the pride comes in. I'm going to feel great. I'm going to feel proud of myself, especially when it's validated back to me that I've done well, because that means I listened well and I was able to convey a pure message as it was meant to be delivered. So that's right, that's how it would be. So when I do a good job, then I'm proud of myself in that I haven't let the team down, I haven't let the spirits down, I haven't let the person that's paying for the service down, and I feel good about that. But the humility is that I know that I'm not special. I know that there is everybody can do this stuff. It's just whether or not they choose to. And the other thing is too, that I've met many people that are far more gifted than what I am. Now, the next bit I'm not convinced applies to me is the 33-6. People with the 33-6 are apparently often blessed with musical talent and visual arts, and they may perform well as actors or actresses. Now, clearly I've got some famous Master Sixes here, and in fact, 3 of the 5 are actually actors and musicians. Red Simons is a guitarist. He played for a band in Skyhooks. Mark Hunter was a singer for the group Dragon. I think they're both Australian, New Zealand people. Meryl Streep, of course, everyone's heard of her, famous actress. Everybody's heard of David Attenborough, and everybody's heard of King Edward as well. I guess it's up to us individually to assess whether or not the next part is true, that they may suppress creativity as part of the sacrifice that they make for other people and other reasons such as family. Meryl Streep may have put her career on hold, I don't know. Red Simons certainly has, and Mark Hunter died young. David Attenborough, I don't think he actually had any intimate relationships with people because obviously he was so focused and dedicated on the environment. King Edward, really, I don't know. But either way, they're all supposed to have charm and charisma. So we've already covered 44 in the numerology of the number 8, okay? But within this context, I'm going to speak to it as a power number, and that the power of it is, of course, associated. The number 8 brings manifestation, success, and people with an 8 generally have qualities that you could almost turn around and say they're like a wizard or a magician. You know, I tend to associate the magician card of the tarot pack with the number 8. But what we've got here is where an 8 is made up of the 2 4s. Now, the 2 4s are actually feminine numbers based on Pythagorean numerology and Charlian, because it's associated with intuition, shall we say. The silver is associated with intuition and the feminine aspects of life. So there is this nurturing and caring element to the number 8 within this instance. Now, because they have karma, the 4 is associated with karma as well. And I would go as far as to say that when we talk about karma, it's not about them playing out past life karma, it's about them learning consequences to actions. And the 4 quite often can be impulsive and then pay the price after the fact. So with the 44, to 8, I should say 44/8, it's more a case of they've learned that they need to manage their impulses, to take responsibility, because not all consequences to actions are desirable. So if they want to have these desirable outcomes, they recognise that they need to be a little bit more practical, a little bit more cautious, as part of their dependability. And because they can do this, because they are dependable, practical and cautious, they can cope with all sorts of emergencies and crises and that kind of stuff with ease, because they have a level of diplomacy. They also carry this inner strength, they're self-disciplined, they've got good common sense, and they certainly make good leaders. And this is because they are realistic, they do have a creative imagination, they are intuitive, and they recognise that they have something to offer to humanity in practical ways. And so this is why they're good leaders. They're able to put their ideas into practice, shall we say, that benefit humanity. Part of the significance of the 44, of course, is that they are brave, they do possess a lot of perseverance, they can adapt to circumstances, even challenging ones, and they're very shrewd, and they can endure hardships as part of achieving the big vision and goals. So while the vibration is one of karma, they also recognise that greed has no part to play. You know, they're not motivated by greed. So those people that haven't opened up to their gifts, because they can be quite practical, They would be advised or encouraged to recognize that life is full of mysteries and psychic phenomena, and just because they occur, it doesn't make them real, just because they can't see it and touch it, because they do have a desire for concrete proof and facts, shall you say, and they would be encouraged to use meditation as part of gaining their spiritual insight and to employing inner peace in their lives. So when we look at the 55, of course, the 55 becomes what is called a 10, which is then broken down to a 1. I associate 1 with new beginnings, new starts. So these people have a lot of endings and new beginnings in their lives, but a lot of that might actually be to do more so with reconstructing who they are and what they think, and perhaps reviewing their belief systems. They certainly have a great strength of mind. They're very perceptive and honest. And part of the power of this number is research and study, translating that information and communicating it to other people. So potentially the topics will be to improve the quality of humanity. Now, for example, this might be, well, I think perhaps I attempt to do this within the content that I deliver, which is where I look at the clinical information that's provided for people to manage their health and mental health. And so somebody with the 55 would be the type of person that can look at those terms and terminology and reduce it down to something that actually helps people, speak the language that people understand. They would have those qualities about them. They certainly wouldn't be followers. This is where I'm going with the 55. They would be able to see the information that's provided. They wouldn't be uncomfortable challenging mainstream perceptions. They have an independence, and they're not really going to be worried. And when I say independence of thought, they would be quite comfortable with, well, if I'm the only person that believes it, it doesn't matter if you believe, because they have this this inner fortitude, if you like. And this inner fortitude is combined with the capacity to be very objective and discriminating in how they rationalise or how they make sense of information. They also have a great imagination and a vivid awareness of the power of words, and this is probably why the stuff that or the information I just shared fits for them or is relevant. They know that the power of words is not just in the way you speak, but how you speak and to who you're speaking to. And if you're trying to convey information to a person, you really must actually have a level of flexibility within your communication style, just to ensure that those people understand what you're actually trying to convey to them. And the thing is, most people that are teachers, they'll know, even if it's not a teacher, I would say actually even parents, if they haven't studied teaching, we know through our children that they all have different learning styles and they all respond to words in different ways as well. So the person with the 5510 is going to be able to do that expression of thoughts. They're going to have agility, and they certainly will be original in the way that they deliver information. They have a very strong sense of justice and fair play, and they're very good at finding solutions to problems. These people would be encouraged to maintain a balance through their life because obviously they need to be able to keep that internal peace, so they would be encouraged to draw upon meditation so that they can retain that positive attitude to life. So as a master number, it's directed to research and all communication, whether it's written or spoken. So once again, when we're talking about power and the magic of numbers, the 66-3, because 6 plus 6 equals 12, which reduces down to a 3. The sixes, as I've said before, they're associated with the colour silver. They're even numbers, so they are considered to be feminine and intuitive type numbers. And when we put them together and they become the 3, of course, then you've got the action part. So you've got a highly intuitive number base here, which is about putting the thought and talk into the walk, is the way I interpret it. The 66-12-3 is potentially found working on environmental and sustainability projects, and they definitely appreciate structure. and organisation. They have tendencies to be very light-hearted. They've got a great sense of humour. They truly do. And they bring light to the people's lives that they interact with simply by being there, because they're just good, fun people. They're very shiny. I mean, of course, there's the everything's got a spin-off, but, you know, when they're living well, they're just a real pleasure to be associated with. It's a master number. Well, I say it's not, it's a power number of love, peace, happiness, contentment, and protection. You could say that they're practical, honest, thoughtful, responsibility, and they supply understanding, compassion, love, inspiration, faith, and hope to humanity. Obviously, I've had to dig deep for this stuff. They tend to have, yes, they do, they tend to have a good sense of rhythm and harmony. So you will actually find them, even if they're not musical oriented, they actually like, in my experience, a bit of a party where they can have a good dance, you know. And what else can I say about them? Definitely a high moral sense combined with a believer in truth and justice. That can lead them to be a little bit unfiltered at times, actually, and create a few problems for them, because they can actually stand up and end up being accused of other things because they're standing up. Well, how would I put this? It would be because of their sense of justice, and they see somebody bullying one person would be a prime example, and then they stand up for the victim, but they stand up so strongly they end up being accused of being a bully themselves. This is not unusual. They will work very hard to achieve success, and they do appreciate beauty in their surroundings. Obviously, they are concerned with environmental issues such as the Earth's resources, and matters that are close to their heart. But I would say there's also that little bit further. When we talk about environmental, as much as, you know, most of us think immediately of the Earth and sustainability of the Earth, as in the Earth form and trees and that kind of thing, I would take it a bit further in as far as saying, I think they're very concerned about the quality of life for animals in zoos and that kind of thing. They like to see animals in their own healthy environment, you know, protected and that kind of stuff. So the key message for the 66 is definitely they have this capacity to lighten the life and path of many, because they are very inspirational in their activities. It's certainly the service activities that they get involved with, and they definitely have a massive capacity to hold and give love. So when we talk about 77 as a power number, it's actually a 5. Obviously 7 plus 7 equals 14, which condenses down to a 5. So what we're talking about here is an energy of accumulated wealth and intellect combined with philanthropy, and this will potentially occur in the areas of teaching and sharing of knowledge. The other factor to just address here is the 7s obviously are a masculine number. They're a number of activity and practicality, if you like, and so is the number 5, because they're both odd numbers. So we can see here that anything that's associated with the 77 is going to be very practical and able to be implemented in ways that are tangible, I guess is the best way of describing it. There is, of course, as with many of the numbers, there is this loss and sacrifice that's associated, because these are part of how we learn and grow in our compassion, whether or not we become spiritual and choose to take a spiritual path. Our sense of humanity develops from this compassion, which leads to empathy for other people, and this becomes a driving force, I guess, for people with the 77. Now, when it comes to the imparting of or the application of knowledge, I think I'll draw upon my own example for this. While I'm not a 77, what worked well for me when I was at university is because I attended as a mature age student. I was in my 40s, well into them by the time I started studying. And what happened was, because I had lived experience and I'd observed situations within the community and within my jobs, when I was able to get the academic information, I was easily able to assimilate that based on my experiences, and so the challenge for me was to convey it succinctly and to put references to my experiences, whereas the younger people that were doing a lot of the courses, they actually really struggled to make sense of the academic learning. And so this is what I say, with the 77, they will have that lived experience which will make it easier for them to share information in ways that make sense to their students or their mentees. I would envisage, though, to be honest, that people with a 77, that they probably tend to do most of the study, but this would be something actually which would be great for research. They're probably more interested in pursuits like kinesiology and some of the non-traditional forms of healing or learning or teaching or whatever. And anyway, consequently, they can expect prosperity, and that will generally lead to philanthropic endeavours. And if we look at the tarot card associated with this, this is the Nine of Pentacles, which actually speaks, I think in my deck I call this serenity. So there's a real peace of mind associated with this, and I think that's important to hold on to. So just to start with, there's no tarot associated to the numerical sequence of the 88. And just a reminder, 88 is it's considered to be a feminine number. It's associated with silver, intuition, moon, emotions, nurturing, maternal type concepts, for want of a different description. But at the same time, because it's an 88, 8 plus 8 equals 16, which breaks down to a 7. So ultimately, whatever intuitive aspects of this combination are, they come back down to a very practically, I almost stumbled over my words, and practically applied knowledge and wisdom. Now, don't forget that the 8 is also associated with the concepts of manifestation, and basically these are very fortunate people in that whatever they want, they can actually create. They seem to have this magical air about them, and they're actually referred to as the magician in the tarot deck. But what we see here with the power numbers is because there's this master number, or it has to be master number because you can't get an 88 as a day number. Because there is this 7 master number, there is also the associations of sacrifice. Now, sacrifice doesn't have to mean an unwilling sacrifice. I should point this out. This might be the decision where a person turns around and says, no, I don't want to have a family or children because I've got this bigger vision, But anyway, so there is an element of sacrifice, there is an element of loss, but at the same time, there is this double whammy of intuition, nurturing, caring, and a real sense of brother and sisterhood about this particular combination. And basically the inferences, and the image here doesn't do justice to it. I was trying to create something with AI to show a person or a personality type who would be like the one that holds the vision of how we can best help humanity. And they might be one of those aid abroad organisations where they're trying to deliver a project to vulnerable people, perhaps where there's, I'm not even going to speculate, but actually what this image I was trying to convey was actually a Red Cross type organisation, a hospital type facility, where it requires high levels of not only coordination capacity, but also the capacity to foresee any potential problems in the future and to be prepared for them, because this will keep the smooth running of the operation or the project happening. And this is the power of this particular combination. They've got foresight, they've got magical capacities, they can pull it all together, they cope well under pressure, and they have a great compassion for everybody. And that includes not just the clients that they're serving or the people that attend facilities, that includes the workers and the staff. And it would be worth exploring, I haven't done this yet, but it would be worth exploring to see who were the founder of these particular aid organisations and what their numerology was, because I would imagine that it would be quite likely they're an 88-7. Because for them, not only do they have this practical capacity, they actually feel driven because they feel a responsibility to care for these people that have become so vulnerable due to circumstances and not through any fault of their own. So they're real, they're not talk the talk people, they are walk the walk people. And I don't think, to be honest, that there's too many of them around. But if you know of somebody, let me know. Please leave a comment. So 99 is actually a really interesting combination because, of course, you've got the practical masculine aspects of the two, but 9 plus 9 equals 18, which then creates another 9. So you may as well say it's 9 times 3. It's really empowered. So it is the number of the humanitarians and the visionaries, and they're not too frightened to get involved with metaphysical pursuits or healing. Okay, so they are what is referred to as the teacher of teachers, and in some instances, if I can talk, the healers of healers. The 9, just a reminder, is often associated with prophecy, and the reality is that this number variation is very rare, and it's believed that it's unlikely that most of the people with this actual birth combination will achieve the potential offered by this combination. And frankly, I would expect, to be honest, and not trying to be what do you call it, a bucket of water, a bucket of cold water, I would expect that to be able to achieve this vibration and its potential would be a really hard task, and it would be a measure of the person's strength of character that they would be able to achieve it. But definitely they would be well suited towards being mediums, psychic channelers, and visionaries. But when we talk about prophecy, that's the capacity quite often to receive messages in dreams in the sleep state. The only example that I can think of, and this isn't a true reflection of the power of the 99, but Mahatma Gandhi was a 9, just a singular 9, and of course everybody will have heard about him. And so I would say, to envisage what a 99 can accomplish in their lifetime, should they pursue it, or should they have capacity to pursue it, would be twice the achievement that he ever received. Now, just an interesting viewpoint here, or just an interesting tidbit of information, he was actually influenced by Henry Thoreau, an American philosopher, with the ruling number of 9, and another guy called, and my pronunciation may be incorrect here, Srimad Raj Chandra, who was an Indian mystic. Now, interestingly, that guy had a ruling number of 33-6. So I just want to make a point here. When we talk about master numbers and power numbers, there are certainly numerologists that will turn around and say that they're extremely rare. Now, I can't speak to that, right? Suffice to say that doing my own family research, what I've established is that regardless of whether or not we've got a master number, there is pockets across family trees, which is why I would encourage you to look at the repetitions in your own tree. But the reason why I say the 33-6 is supposed to be extremely rare. Now, obviously, I put more emphasis on the 33-6 within this video, and this is because obviously it's my own. But what I want to say is that through my own research, I established that as far as 33-6s go, my father is 1. He is a twin, so therefore his brother is 1. He is one of 6 children, and so he has 2 other brothers with a ruling number of a 33-6, and then out of the 6 boys, 2 of them have got a 24-6, so I see that as being a very interesting combination within a family group or cluster. My grandfather has a day number of 11 and a ruling number of 3. My day number, which we're going to talk about day numbers on the next video, my day number is a 22, my son's day number is a 22, my paternal grandmother is a 22, but she's got a ruling number of 5. You can see there just a couple of little patterns happening there, because really a 2 plus 2 is a 4. So on here we've got 4s, 6s and 3s just on this slide. Now, in my researching for the videos on ruling numbers, I did manage to establish another recurring theme, and that's actually in the family of Kirk Douglas, because he and his grandmother both his granddaughter, Catherine Zeta Douglas, both have ruling 11s. But yeah, anyway, I would encourage you to take a good look at your own family tree, because I actually think that in many ways this reinforces the concept of soul pacts, divine plans, divine blueprints, and where we're born into a family for our specific soul growth. And if we can see this, I'm speculating, of course, when you can see the patterns in your tree, it makes sense that we're born into these particular families for whatever lessons it is that we need to learn and to grow and evolve from. So, my friends, that concludes the content on the master numbers as primary pathways to life and the divine plan. Next week, I'm going to start the content on day numbers, which is the secondary path, and it certainly carries influence on the primary path as well. And obviously, I mentioned within my own family grouping links between day numbers as well. So, anyway, that can reveal a lot about a person's life path, personality, all this kind of stuff. And it is considered to be a parallel pathway to the master number. Until then, however, I would like to thank you once again for being part of my journey. Thank you for participating. Thank you for viewing. Until next week, I wish you a beautiful, blessed day and a blessed week. Take care. Catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.